Welcome everyone to Message Meg. I'm Meg Farris. You've posted, you've texted, emailed, and DM'd your questions, your thoughts, your concerns about those weight loss injections. And today we have experts, doctors, and researchers to answer your questions. We have real patients using this class of medications, and they're going to share touching personal stories about the physical side, but also the emotional side of their health, their journeys, even the backlash they've gotten just for using them. We'll bring in board-certified specialists, physicians who prescribe those GLP-1 injections, and those who are helping with the shortage and the high cost. And we've invited patients who are dealing with the issue of sagging skin after weight loss, expert doctors who will show us how that can be fixed. And we'll also talk to a doctor and a woman about how these weight loss drugs are changing the lives of some couples who've struggled to get pregnant and have a baby. Now first, let's hear real stories and real experiences. And I'm going to start with, let me ask all of you first of all, how many of you was this the kind of a struggle, or maybe I don't know if I want to go public with this, coming on today?
Yeah, there's still a stigma surrounding it.
All of you, or was it just, no, I'm all in?
Oh yeah, girl, I thought about canceling last minute. Like, look, okay. I don't think that we should talk about this,
well,
but.
Colleen Seeley, you have lost 30 pounds already, and let's go back to childhood and how we got to this day where you felt you needed to use these and why they've been so successful for you.
So, growing up, I was fortunate to have dinner, big meals, everything that I needed to eat, right? Mm-hmm. However, I was in trouble. I would be punished if I didn't finish everything on my plate.
Clean your plate.
I could not recognize through my years in the teens and even to early adulthood, even though I became a fitness coach and understood about nutrition, that, okay, finish when you're full. Well, I'd also inhale my food so fast that maybe I'm not full right now. So I've struggled so much with feeling the need to finish something. I want to open a bag of chips. I need to finish the whole bag. I can't just have a bite or so. So that's where I was able to kind of find where that stemmed from, of still continuing to eat even though when I was full.
You've been in the pageant world. Tell me how that kind of pushed you to feel not good about yourself.
I made up in my mind, oh, this is beauty. This is what I need to try to get to. And I wouldn't eat as much, or I would go on binges where I would have like a bunch of food and then go days with having minimal food. So I was just all around just confused about what I'm supposed to do or what I wasn't supposed to do. I'd research, I'd ask for help, and I would get different answers. But at the end of the day, it came to where I needed to figure out what the heck was going on with me. From the pageant world into athletics, still needed to have a body of an athlete. And when I did get cut and I could see my muscles and I felt beautiful, I still would look back and say, oh, I need to lose weight. I'm too heavy. Because my BMI said that I was obese, even for military reserves. It was still showing that I was obese, so then it confused me even more, Meg, when I was one of the most fittest people that I knew in the area, could back squat 365 pounds, I CrossFit, but yet I'm obese. So it was very frustrating, and this has led me to now I'm 30 years old, where I'm just now trying to and getting a grip on things because of the injection.
Wow. And what made you decide to go try this drug? Because diet and exercise wasn't working for you.
No, it wasn't. And in the past year, so back up 4 years after I lost my father, I became depressed. I wasn't clinically depressed, but I know I was depressed. I was having trouble with coping with eating. And then I lost my nephew to cancer in the past year, and then my mom just had cancer. So I was stress eating. I would meal prep, and then I would just throw my meals away and just go in the drive-thru and eat whatever I wanted to eat. So I've tried those things, and it wasn't until recently when I've seen everything coming out about the shots that, hey, there's a possibility of having something help you. And I was very against that. I used to not even take my vitamins, girl. And I just pulled the trigger. It started out as a joke. And I didn't think that I needed to lose weight, but I wanted to control the binge eating and the poor choices.
And you say that it also helped with binge alcohol drinking.
Oh yeah, so we live in New Orleans, so drinking becomes a cultural thing, social, and I didn't think that I necessarily had a problem, but then when I would have a drink every day or feel the need to where it became a habit and I needed to have a drink, that's where I knew there was a problem. And with this shot, I almost just don't want it.
Wow, that is absolutely fantastic. And Rosalie Mortellero,
Yes.
your story is not unique because there are people who have the bariatric surgery,
Correct.
but then also are using this to continue that weight loss. There's so much science behind why both of them work. 90 pounds down.
Yes.
And tell me how this is continuing your weight loss from when you had bariatric surgery, the injections.
Absolutely. So years ago, I actually had the lap band procedure, and I had some success with it, but there were complications. Eventually, that led to me getting the lap band removed, and when the surgeon went in to remove the lap band, he said, let's do the gastric sleeve procedure and just change you over to that. So after that procedure, then I was pretty successful, but then like everyone, you hit a plateau after you're rocking and rolling with weight loss, and I hit a plateau, and my doctor suggested trying the injections. I first tried semaglutide. I had a little bit of success, but it really was not for me. And then they suggested the tirzepatide, and since I went on that, that's when things started happening again.
And that hits two receptors, where the semaglutide hits one receptor. And is it freedom? Is it there's something the doctors describe as food noise. You know you're full, you know you've eaten, but your brain is thinking about food. Do y'all feel some sort of freedom from that food noise?
Yeah, it makes you just feel satisfied, and you don't need to keep eating, so it does curb the food noise, I find.
And Carolyn, give us your story.
Yeah, I started taking the semaglutide back in 2022, so it was April of 2022 when I started, and
wow, it's a milestone. You know the exact time.
Yeah, and it's been a huge change. I was going through, I had tried everything else. I felt like I was counting calories. There was a time where I was doing like 1,600 calories a day to try to lose the weight. And as hard as I would work between exercise and eating well, nothing would help me lose the weight. And a lot of the reason I put on the weight, I think, was because I used to be a morning news reporter, and you're eating a terrible, your eating habits get really out of whack when you're working that kind of schedule. And then after that, it was just harder and harder as I aged too, and hit the 35-year-old mark, and then suddenly it's impossible to get the weight to come off without any help. And so when I started with the medication, the weight started coming off really easily. And so then I saw the benefits of what I was doing, eating healthier and also working out. And it's nice to know you're putting in the work, but then also seeing the results, as opposed to putting in the work and never seeing anything for it.
And did you feel that it wasn't a food fight? And this is how I describe a food fight. You know you shouldn't eat X, whatever it is, but your brain keeps saying, okay, I want it, but I'm not going to eat it, I'm not going to eat it. I understand with this drug, you feel more like, I don't have to eat it. I'm fine if I don't eat it. Whereas without it, you feel like it's a fight in your brain to not eat it. Does that adequately describe?
I think so.
Yeah. I would say I noticed it most in carnival season at work, because everybody brings in king cakes, and there would just be king cake after king cake coming into work, and suddenly I noticed that I didn't have to try a piece. I didn't even want to try a piece, especially judging the quality of the king cake. Then I was like, no, it's not worth it. And you didn't feel that urge to always be eating, and it just turned off that urge, and also the hunger, just because especially when you're trying to do a 1,600 calorie diet, you're starving all the time. It's just.
And let me bring in Janice. Janice, now you're a nurse, and what made you decide to try this? You had the bariatric surgery, and then you also are using this to help, and you're down 60 pounds?
I used it as an adjunct. So, we talk about plateaus, we talk about, the food noise, and we need tools for everything. And we can't change a tire without a tool. We can't put our makeup or fix our hair without a tool. So this I see as kind of a tool to help create that blockage of that food noise. You hit the plateaus, as the other ladies were speaking of, the diet, the exercise, and coaching. I'm approaching 50. So you really get into that perimenopausal, premenopausal, where losing weight's difficult, and it's even more difficult. So this is the tool that I've used, and I have had success with using it. And it does quiet that food noise. It turns that little switch off in your brain that says, to your point, you don't need it. Walk away, drink some water, go take a walk. So that's kind of where my story is.
And on an emotional side, I want all of y'all to weigh in on this. What does it feel like to be free from that? And I want to know how the world has treated all of you differently, because we've all had higher weight and lower weight, and the world treats you differently. Colleen, you want to start with that?
Sure. People just assumed that things came easy for me. They just thought that I didn't work as hard, so I feel like it really discredited, because I was fit, that I didn't have these struggles mentally with the food noise and the binge eating, and that's what I faced.
And are you facing some of the backlash of, oh, the easy way out? You cheated to lose weight.
Yeah, already. So I was open with people around work, and then within the community, and I've already received statements, oh, you're too thin now, you need to stop losing weight. But I also got that Meg when I was heavier. So that's also been confusing. So what I know deep in my core is that the fact that this is making me crave fresh fruits, vegetables, and I'll get sick if I have sugar, I'm doing the right thing and putting in the proper nutrition and fuel. And those who have those comments to make, they're the ones binge drinking, binge eating, doing drugs, all these other things, but they want to just point fingers and still continue to not check within themselves.
I see head nodding over here, Rosalie. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm still on the journey, but luckily I've had a lot of support in my life, and I'm going to keep going.
And you want to teach aqua aerobics. You want to help other people.
Yes. So in this journey, I discovered a passion for aqua fitness, and my goal is to become an instructor and specialize in obese populations and help others on that journey to physical fitness.
And before the 90 pounds gone, you wouldn't have thought about your life.
Absolutely not. I was barely mobile. So now to be mobile and active, and my goal is to help others.
That's wonderful. And what about yours, Carolyn?
I haven't gotten any negative feedback directly, but I've seen the people who post on social media that it's somehow cheating or taking the easy way out. And I guess I would ask, do they expect people with high blood pressure to not take medication to address that? Or do they expect people with depression or something to not use tools that help them? And it's just a tool to help you lose the weight. And it also is a tool that works so well, because when you lose the weight, it makes you healthier all around. I used to have some knee issues that have pretty much gone away because I'm not so heavy anymore, not putting so much pressure on my joints.
Interesting. And Janice, doctors are going to be telling us coming up, and you're a registered nurse and you know this, that there are a lot of people who can't lose weight without getting their metabolism right with a drug that helps their metabolism work correctly.
Right, absolutely. And that's why these medicines are so important and so valuable. My story is a little bit different in the sense of with the medication. I really haven't, this is kind of my first really talking to people about it, because it kind of makes that, and by no means has any family member been negative to me, but you have that feeling of, did I fail? Yes, to the point of you need the tools for this, but that's kind of my own self-evaluation. So this is kind of like my story to tell here today, that, you do need those tools. You do need that help, because as we age and as we get older, the hormones, the metabolism, all that changes. And to the previous lady's point is, you can't treat blood pressure without medicine. You can't treat diabetes a lot of times without medicine. So can't we try to treat obesity with a medicine and tool that's going to help us? And it's improved so many people's lives.
I explained it to an internal medicine doctor this way. I said, if I want to have blonde hair, I can have blonde hair. I had blonde hair in college, okay? I was young. I said, but every week I'm going to have to there's going to be dark roots. I'm going to have to re-dye it. My hair is going to get dry and brittle because I'm constantly having to use it. But I can be a blonde, but it's going to take a lot of work. Totally different from a natural blonde who wakes up and doesn't have to do anything. That's the way I look at weight. It's just a genetic thing, and I know I have to work extra against my genetics to be like some people. I have 5 brothers. There's some that they eat anything they want, and it's just always the same weight. And so I don't think a lot of people understand that it's not about willpower.
We are all very different, and that was such a great explanation that you gave about the hair color. It really puts a visual on understanding, oh, it's not a cookie cutter way to be able to become healthier.
Rosalie, what were you going to say about, it's fighting genetics? And
Oh yeah, definitely. I do like the explanation that you said, and one thing that I was thinking about is that you do still have to do your meal prep and things like that, because even though the medication takes away the cravings, you still have to watch what you're eating and preferably log what you're eating and keep track of your calories. And because they say you can't outrun a bad diet, but same with the medication, you still have to keep on top of your diet even taking the medication.
well, do all of y'all find that when you got this and it helped with the hunger, that you naturally wanted to eat more healthful types of food? Did you find that, Carol? Y'all are all nodding.
Yeah, I found that, and it also, you mentioned it too, the medication, it almost feels like it punishes you if you don't eat well, if you eat a lot of sugar. I noticed this with snowballs, that, it has this habit of just, or this tendency to, if you're not eating a lot of fiber and fruits and vegetables and a lot of protein, it can kind of backfire in a way. So I guess that works, the medication works 2 ways, in that it's helping you, it's your metabolism, but it's also encouraging you in a way to eat healthier.
Yeah, so it's not the easy way out, y'all, because there's some things that we have to deal with that makes it a bit difficult.
Janice, have you found that as the weight went down, you wanted to eat more, you had more healthful choices with your food, and you wanted to have more activity, physical activity?
Oh, sure, absolutely. There's a sense of accountability. You're taking this medicine, but it's not going to do its justice if you don't give it the tools to work correctly. The eating healthy, the exercising. I have a desk job, so I'm more of a sedentary lifestyle when it comes to the Monday through Friday 9 to 5. So I find myself, when I want to take a break, I'm gonna go walk around my sofa 5, 6, 7 times. And I get up early, extra early, to make sure I work out in the morning. So really, it's the medicine has, for me, a dual effect. It's helping with the food noise, helping with the cravings and eating better, but it's also that mental of helping hold me accountable to eating better, because I want the medicine and I want myself to be as successful as I can.
What about payment issues? Because some insurance doesn't cover this for weight loss, and I've talked to people who have been upset because they've had to get off of it because they couldn't afford it. And then they've started to gain weight back because their metabolism still has that dysregulation. Is that a fear for any of you ladies?
It definitely is for me. When you see the news from around the country where some insurance companies are telling people that they won't cover it beyond the end of the year because they don't recognize the benefits of it, I worry about it for sure.
Any kind of medicine, there's a cost behind it, and it's very expensive. But for me, I have to weigh the pros and the cons, and we try to budget it in every month, and it's tough because it is. I mean, it isn't covered, and I just hope that they will see the benefit of this medicine and realize that it's not just for other diseases like diabetes and things. It does really help with this disease we call obesity around the nation.
And we know that obesity in an inflammatory state, higher risk for heart disease, higher risk for many types of cancer, higher risk for knee replacement, hip replacement. I mean, the list goes on, dementia and stroke, the list goes on and on and on. So, yeah. So there are compounded versions that are much cheaper. How much are you paying a month?
Right now, I pay about $350 a month, and I do the compounded.
Okay, the compounded, because people
Yes,
who
ma'am.
were on the brand name who weren't getting compounded and the insurance wasn't paying for it were paying like $1,500 a month and couldn't
right.
afford it.
Right. And that for me absolutely is not a doable. Now, if it wasn't for the compounded form of it, then I would not be able to use this tool. So I've been very grateful that my physician and my nurse practitioner has introduced this piece of it to me because, again, it has made it more affordable. We won't say very affordable, we'll say more affordable.
Yes. Are you finding the same thing, Colleen, with the money part of
Yeah,
it?
Meg, insurance doesn't cover mine because I'm not obese. So they're like, you don't
Or
need
diabetic.
it. Right, or diabetic. So I have to pay out of pocket.
Or any of y'all concerned about losing too much weight or losing too much muscle or anything like that? Do people say, oh, you're going to have all these other issues? Have y'all been bombarded with those type of judgments and calls?
Yeah, I am going to start weight training. I did have a nurse when I said I was doing water aerobics, and they said, well, that's low impact. You need to do weight training in addition. So I am going to start that to supplement.
And 100 pounds ago, you probably wouldn't have thought about adding that to your life. And
No,
look at you.
and I had started out, once the weight came off, I just started walking, and then the walking led to the water aerobics, and then here we are.
That's wonderful, wonderful. And so have any of y'all experienced a shortage? There's some people who I've had, one doctor got upset because I would do science stories on this medication, and the doctor wrote and said, by doing stories on weight loss, you're taking away from the diabetic people because there's a shortage. But the compounding is filled in. Have y'all found a shortage or unable to get your medication at any time?
I
Any of
take
you?
the compounded, so
you're okay.
The supply's been fine.
I've run into it a couple of times where maybe the pharmacy I usually use doesn't have it, but it's easy to call around and find a different pharmacy that might have it, or just wait a couple of days and it usually comes in.
Are any of y'all concerned about going off of it?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Because now that I know, the typical saying of it takes 30 days to build a habit, I'm past the 30-day mark, so I'm like, okay, I'm fixed. But I know that I'm still going to have some tendencies, so I'm a bit nervous. But I'm around that time where I'm ready to taper off, really in the next couple of weeks here. And I do have a little bit of anxiety about, what if I start going back into my old ways? What if I start doing this? And then that fight, that mental fight of, I need to have this, I need to have that. So it's a little bit stressful, but then understanding, hey, like remembering how I feel, how much more energy I have with eating cleaner and just trying to be disciplined. But again, it's not all about being disciplined and willpower.
Janice, I wanted to ask you because I've had patients who I've interviewed who were crying because they could no longer get it, and they had diabetes. They got it on insurance, then they lost weight and weren't diabetic. They had to get off of it because they couldn't afford it, and then the weight started creeping back up because they still had that metabolic issue. So are you concerned?
I haven't been on it for very long. So I'm not at that discussion yet, but I have talked to my nurse practitioner about it, and we've kind of discussed in the future how that will look. And so she said, I've got a plan, as she does with all of her patients. So I'm kind of really not at that point yet, but I hope to be there soon.
Yeah, and I would just love for the insurance companies to realize, like you said, how much they're saving in knee surgeries and things like that, and funding this for the patients that need it.
My uncle has been on Ozempic. He was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes back in his 40s, and he was put on Ozempic as soon as it became available for diabetics. And now he's in his 70s, and he goes to the gym 4 times a week. That's his social activity. He loves spin classes, and he's traveling the world and doing all these things in his 70s. And that's where I want to be. So that's why I'm really happy to have this medicine that can help me get to that point and stay healthy.
Life-changing, life-changing. And the research is going on now. We touched on alcohol. It's incredible that the people who were saying, I have a drink every now and then, but I don't feel like I have to medicate with alcohol, and that must seem like freedom too.
Oh, absolutely. And if you look at the pricing of rehabs alone for drugs and alcohol, even though this can be a bit expensive, it's a lot less painful because you're not missing work, you're not missing things, and it's been life-changing.
We hope that insurance begins to really see this as a preventative. So hopefully in the future they will see, again, to the point of it prevents, hopefully by the weight loss, all the other complications. So they begin to focus on preventative medicine. But also the big message I would say is, you're never alone. You could feel you're alone, but you see here, there's a few ladies just right here who have walked the same walk and journeyed on the same path. And, that's the best thing about it is this can be sometimes a very alone time because you feel like you're judged or you're looked at a different way, but you're not alone. So that would be my biggest takeaway.
So important because there is the psychosocial part of weight. I know people who won't go to a class reunion if they've gained, a little weight and don't feel like they look good. Or you don't want to go out, you just don't feel like you're your best. And then you miss out on life, and then all of a sudden life, years have gone by. And that makes me sad that there are people who feel that they can't go participate in things because of being judged. I think we've all been there at some point. Yeah, lots of head nodding going on. When we come back, a top obesity researcher who's going to tell us how these GLP-1 medications work, and I guarantee you, she has scientific information that you have never heard before. Stay there.
Everything you love about the WWL Louisiana Morning News is right here on WWL Plus. Breaking news, local weather, and your favorite news team, whenever you want.
Watch only on WWL Plus, live, local, and always on.
Have you ever felt like someone in power was hiding something? A lie? A bribe? Abuse of their power? I'm WWL Chief Investigative Reporter David Hammer, and I don't just report the stories, I uncover the truth.
Everything you love about Great Day Louisiana is right here on WWL Plus. Food, music, and culture. Everything you love about Louisiana whenever you want. Get the WWL Plus app today, live, local, and always on.
Welcome back, everyone, to Message Meg. Now, you're about to learn things about weight loss and diabetes injections that are not talked about on message boards or even in your doctor's offices. The science behind obesity, weight loss, and weight gain that will challenge your way of thinking about your body and others who struggle to stay thin. Now, here with us today is Dr. Melinda Southern, a licensed clinical exercise physiologist and obesity researcher at LSU Health Sciences Center in New Orleans. And she has published many scientific journals and books about weight loss, and in children too. And Oprah Winfrey even had her on her show to talk about this. All right, let's first talk about, we are not all created equally. We're not even conceived equally that can predict you being overweight or obese for the rest of your life. What happens when you're in the womb? Tell me about some of those studies.
So your risk for obesity starts at conception because the environment during those 9 months of pregnancy will predict whether or not you're born with a healthy metabolism, for example, or a healthy brain circuit that can handle things like hunger and craving. If the mother, for example, gains a lot of weight during pregnancy, or if she was already very overweight to begin with and continues to gain weight, the baby can be born with a tendency toward being insulin resistant. And that means their body doesn't use insulin well.
Doesn't use insulin for energy, to make food into energy, it uses it to store. Well, let me, some of the things you've told me about in the past, mother's weight being too high, if the mother smokes during pregnancy, if the mother doesn't breastfeed, so breastfeed has a positive effect. Okay, hormone balances, if the mother just takes in too many calories, all these can set you up to be a overweight or obese person by the time you reach puberty and beyond.
Right, and the younger you become overweight, the harder it will be for you to lose weight later. Because if you become overweight very young, that's a sign that something is wrong with your metabolism already.
Okay, so let's go to metabolism. You've taught me over the years that when I'd say, well, why isn't it easy to lose weight? And you always said it's a multi-system, multi-organ, very complicated issue. So it's not one organ, here's the one fix. Okay, so you have this tendency to eat too much or to gain weight, and you want to lose weight. So you said that researchers for years didn't look at metabolism. They looked at, oh, let's do something to the stomach to make you feel full. But that was on the wrong track?
Not really, because that is one part of obesity. There are people whose brain signals don't function properly, and that's really the only thing that's wrong, but their metabolism is healthy. So those weight loss drugs worked for that sector of the population. But because of the way we've changed our eating and our exercise habits over centuries, because we've become sedentary and we eat processed foods, our biology has changed as well. And now more people have disrupted metabolism. They're born with it, and it's very difficult for them to manage it with all this outside influence to eat too much and not play outside enough, for example, in children.
Okay, so the hormones, we have hormones that say you're full, you have hormones that say eat. Okay, we know that's not equal in everyone, so some people have that.
Right.
Okay, so now we're coming to metabolism, because that's what these injections work on. So what is wrong with a lot of people's metabolisms, especially if you're pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes?
Okay, so it's a cycle. So even if you're not overweight by the time you're, say, 18, but you begin to lay down fat, especially in the stomach area, the abdomen area, that begins the cycle of metabolic dysfunction, where the fat inside your gut gets sucked up into your bloodstream, then it gets into your organs, and then it messes with all the signaling of these peptides and these hormones and these enzymes. So even if it starts later, you can actually self-induce it by letting yourself get way too overweight. Because even if you didn't have this epigenetic predisposition, if you become very sedentary and you eat very high fat, loaded with sugar, lots of calories, and you get very significantly obese as an adult, you can force yourself into this dysregulated metabolism. Once it starts, it doesn't stop. You just keep laying on more fat into your gut, your liver gets more dysfunctional, your pancreas isn't secreting insulin, and that's where these specific weight loss drugs that are on the market today are effective for the people who have gotten to that point where their body does not want to use the food they eat as fuel to just sustain day-to-day activities.
It wants to store it.
It wants
as
to
fat.
store it
Okay.
as fat.
So this has nothing to do with willpower.
No,
it has
absolutely
nothing to do with, oh, just go out and exercise and diet. Of course, diet and exercise are always important. But these people, and there's a lot of them in the U.S., because look at our packaged foods. It's loaded with high fructose corn syrup and all that type of thing. Okay, so it's not a matter of, like, we're not all created equally.
Exactly.
Okay, so these drugs come, and I'm asking this question because so many people at home have been told there's a stigma or this is a crutch. But you say this is their only way for a lot of the American population. 10 million people, by the way, or 15.5 have used it, and 10 million people currently using it. So what is happening when they get this injection?
Okay, so this is a chemical that occurs naturally in the body. Okay, it's a
GLP-1.
peptide. GLP-1, glucagon peptide 1, right? So the body uses it to promote insulin and to uptake sugar and to slow digestion. So you see how that combined is going to keep your metabolism working better? Because glycolysis, which is what all that together means, is the first step in your metabolic pathway. If that is not happening as it should, then your metabolism is not going to work, and your body is not going to use the insulin that goes to your muscles. You're going to have sugar that's elevated. That's going to force what you eat, especially if it's sugar, into your gut, and that starts that cycle that I mentioned before. Once you get inflammation throughout the body and in the organs, everything gets disrupted. The signals to the brain even get disrupted.
Makes you hungrier. You've just eaten, but you still feel hungry.
Right, because when, I like, this is an example I like to give people. Think about when you're hangry. People talk about that. If they're very far away from a meal, you know, they'll be irritable. Well, that's because when your metabolism is not in equilibrium, it affects your brain. So it makes sense that if you have a pharmacologic agent that promotes this GLP-1 to do its job, it's going to normalize your metabolism. You're going to use your food as fuel, right? It's not going to get stored. You're going to feel better. You're going to have more energy, right? You're going to want to exercise, and you won't feel as hungry because you don't have all these signals going to the brain saying that, oh, wait, I didn't eat, when you probably did eat, but the insulin's not telling your muscles that you ate. So everything is dependent upon something called homeostasis, right? That all of your enzymes, all of your peptides, all of your hormones are working collectively for a healthy metabolism. Now, what makes a healthy metabolism? We know that exercise training does this. So can you promote GLP-1 action with exercise? Absolutely. And people who are fit and healthy and, you know, maybe only need to lose 10 or 15 pounds, they're not going to have an effect from this medication. This medication is not going to work for them.
I don't understand that, because you see Hollywood stars
Yes.
allegedly on this who look pretty good, but then they lose more weight. So are some of them, how is that happening?
You know, some people can exercise and diet their way into a healthy weight and still have this dysfunctional metabolism. Maybe these agents will work to stabilize them better. But this medication was not designed for them. This medication was designed for people with significant overweight conditions, people who need to lose 50, 100 pounds, people who are already insulin resistant. So you can be pre-diabetic or insulin resistant. Your doctor will tell you that. If you have that, you are definitely a candidate for this medication if you've tried everything else. You know, you can always try a lifestyle program first to see if it works. But when it doesn't work, this would be something that you could talk to your doctor about to add.
Now, you say that there is a whole segment of the population that will need to be on this for the rest of their lives. And to me, this is what it sounds like. You reach menopause, your ovaries don't make 3 important hormones anymore. You take your hormone replacement because your body's not making it. So there are people whose body is not going to use the GLP-1 properly, and so they need to use this medication for the rest of their lives.
You know that if the woman does not take hormone replacement therapy, not only will she gain weight, and predominantly weight in the abdomen, but she'll also have bone loss. So GLP-1 will promote a metabolism that will make her feel better so that maybe she can exercise, right? Then of course it's going to normalize the metabolism, which may aid in hunger and satiety to keep her from eating, you know, too much, and to make her satiated and full when she is eating. So it could have an impact on menopause, but this hasn't been studied exclusively in women at this point. There are indications that women, for example, who are on these agonists, they have more chances for psychiatric symptoms, and so that's something to watch out for as well. 69% versus 30% in men. And there are side effects to these medications, which, you know, are gastric in nature, you know, nausea, sometimes to the point of vomiting, sometimes to the point of having diarrhea. And
But that's only in the first 30 days while you're titrating up, right?
In most individuals, it subsides in 30 days, but not all, okay? And remember, a lot of people do have these particular side effects. Few have the severe side effects, which are like gallstones and pancreatitis and some of those other ones. But there are some eating disorder, psychiatric symptoms that could be of concern. So anyone with a history of binge eating or any type of eating disorder, you're not a candidate for this medication.
And that's why these need to be monitored by a doctor.
Right.
But some of the things that we're reading is people are telling us that they don't want to drink as much alcohol. They were binge drinking alcohol,
Yes.
and now they feel normalized about that. They're not biting their fingernails. So what I'm learning is, here you sent me, they enhance cell growth, promote removal of damaged cells, provides protection of brain function, and your brain function gets better.
Right.
And heart disease is better, kidney function. So and even, and we'll talk in a later segment about people who are having trouble getting pregnant are now getting pregnant. So it feels like all this dysregulation of these body chemicals and hormones, this has an effect on all of that.
Well, just think about what I said earlier. Glycolysis is the first step in the metabolic pathway. So if your GLP-1 isn't working properly, then all of your systems are going to fall behind. And then as you enter stages of life where that happens automatically, like menopause, of course it's going to be heightened. But the improvement in brain function, it's primarily in memory and also the reward center. So that's also the center that controls appetite and satiety. So it stands to reason that, of course, if you take the medications that enhance this peptide's action, that you're going to have improved, cell stimulation, cell growth. And this is the other thing they found. Of course, they find these out in animals first, right? Was that dead cell removal is more rapid as well. So it's just a healthier cellular environment. And interestingly enough, it was 19 years ago that they first prescribed one of these GLP-1 or antagonist to humans for type 2 diabetes. That's what it was originally designed for. And it's only been 10 years since they approved it for weight loss. But what people don't understand is that 20 years before that, they did preclinical studies. So they looked at GLP-1 in the cells, and they looked at what it did. And then they went to animals, and they blocked it, and then they enhanced it, and then they looked at what it did. And then eventually, they went through 4 phases of trials with the FDA. This is why it took so long. And in the meantime, there were other weight loss drugs that people were trying, which weren't as effective and only worked for a certain sector of the population, as we said before. I think these medications can be very useful for people who have tried everything and they're so beating up themselves because they think it's their willpower, or they think there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them other than that due to something that happened early in their life or even later in their life, their metabolism became damaged. And this particular medication repairs that damage. You have to take it. I'm not going to say for the rest of your life because they're working on some maintenance protocols now, Meg. And we also know that if you begin to exercise and you maintain that exercise, it helps you to keep that weight off and keep your metabolism healthy. Because remember, this GLP-1 responds to exercise training.
But in particular, we're talking about weight training, resistance training.
Right.
The more muscle you build,
high intensity.
The high intensity, but not only cardio, but building more muscle, because the more lean muscle you have in your body, the better your metabolism works.
That's right. So moderate exercise has health benefits. Everyone knows this, so just increasing your physical activity. But their impact on your healthy metabolism is minimal. High intensity or interval training has the best impact on your metabolism. Strength training, which alters the cellular structure of your muscles, where you uptake the insulin to get rid of sugar, is huge for improving your metabolism. So this is why additive, there's numerous clinical trials showing that adding nutrition, education, counseling, and exercise enhance the benefits of these medications.
Well, I have to tell you, the people I know who are on it, that's kind of a natural progression.
Yeah.
They feel better, their brain feels better, they start working out more, they start wanting to eat more healthful food. I mean, that's what I'm seeing in just anecdotally, people I know who are on it. But the opposite is true, is you can get your metabolism in trouble and out of whack if you do live on processed foods that can sit on a shelf for 3 years and all those preservatives and all that sugar high content. You can make your metabolism not work right. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. And there are studies that show that added sugar limits GLP-1 action. So if you take in a lot of sugary beverages, foods that have added sugar, you're damaging the action of your GLP-1. So taking this medication is going to improve that, but if you continue to take in the added sugar, it's going to limit the effect of the medication. But here's the side note on that. Because your brain function around satiety and hunger, are resolved once your metabolism gets healthy, you probably won't crave the sugar. That doesn't mean you don't still have to watch the hidden sugar in your foods.
When I think in childhood that we used to eat the sugary cereal in the whole milk, pour sugar on it, and then eat the sugar out of the milk. I mean, it's no wonder a lot of Americans are walking around with dysregulated metabolism. What really surprised me is one thing I learned, that 65 and older, it's not going to work as well.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So all the therapies that repair the organs in the body are limited once you become a certain age because of something called senescence, and that's just your body wants, the cells want to die. They just are old, you're frail, the organs aren't working as well. The systems just in general, because they're aged, don't respond to the therapies as well. That's one thing. The other thing is that the medications that enhance GLP-1 action, they promote pretty rapid weight loss and substantial weight loss. And with that type of weight loss, you can also have muscle loss, and with muscle loss typically comes bone loss as well. Now, the way to address that is to make sure that your physician is checking your vitamin and mineral levels, because a lot of this has to do with poor intake of especially the B vitamins, D, and also some of the minerals. So whenever you limit your caloric intake, you run the risk of malnutrition. Older people already have that risk. As people age, they tend not to eat as well. They tend to lose weight. And their bone is kind of part of the whole muscle loss and organ loss and brain function loss. So there are some indications that this medication slows that process down, but it doesn't eliminate the bone loss. So if you add exercise specifically and you become fit or trained, it limits the bone loss with this medication.
So bottom line is people should not feel shame or stigma because they need this. It's just like if some other system in your body was broken. Your heart, you may need a stent or a pump in your heart to make it work right. There are people out there who have dysregulated metabolism who need this to aid their metabolism so it will work right. So they can go out and exercise and do that type of thing.
And the statistics on that are huge. I mean, 80% of the population is at risk for diabetes and heart disease due to obesity. It's high.
80% in America.
And in the world, actually, I mean, it's worldwide. Worldwide, the obesity rates are just accelerating rapidly because people got overweight younger, and that continued. And the diet hasn't kept up. The diet changes haven't kept up with what is needed. People are still not eating nutrient-dense foods. They're still eating too much added sugar and too much saturated fat. Not enough whole grains, not enough fruits and vegetables. So
shop the outside aisles of the grocery store.
Eat as close to nature as possible. Fresh is best. Frozen fruits and vegetables are next, then canned. But if it's in a box and it's in a package and you turn it over and it has 10 different ingredients in front of what you thought you were buying, don't buy it. It's also twice as expensive. I don't even know people realize that. One of those Lunchables, right? It costs more than some lean chicken that I was going to cook. I'm like, what am I doing? Because it's convenient. But anyway, so I think when you are metabolically sick, you don't feel good, Meg. And this is what people need to realize. So no coaching from somebody to get off the couch and go run, or, don't go and grab that, that second bowl of ice cream. It's going to help you when you just don't feel good. So if you can't jumpstart your glycolysis normally because you've become so overweight, because maybe you had a epigenetic predisposition like we talked about. Your mother was overweight, or she didn't gain enough weight in pregnancy, or you became very overweight before the age of 5, and you began to actually have problems with your insulin when you were a teenager. Chances are you're going to be a middle-aged person who can't fix your obesity or your risk for type 2 diabetes with diet and exercise alone. This is why this medication might work for you.
Okay.
But remember, all medications have side effects, right? One size does not fit all. Work with your doctor to tailor the amount of medication you take, how to dose the exercise back into your life, how to change your eating habits now that you're not hungry, hangry all the time.
Bottom line, people should not beat themselves up for being obese, being very overweight, and being unable to go fix it right away.
That's absolutely true. Their responsibility to promote a healthy metabolism. and to try to do that with exercise and with healthy nutrition. But often, because their metabolism is so damaged, they can't do it with just those two components. So talk to your doctor. There are medications that are effective, that directly interact with chemicals that will enhance your metabolism, your ability to use the food you eat for fuel. And see if adding them works for you. It may be a game changer. And don't feel guilty to tell people that you have a medical problem. It's called obesity and insulin resistance, pre-diabetes. And guess what? I have to take medicine for it. And the medicine is working.
All right. Thank you, Dr.
Don't you like
Southern.
it?
On the next Message Meg, we're diving deeper into the weight loss revolution and what it means to you. We're bringing in board-certified specialists and prescribing physicians to break down the GLP-1 injection craze, plus how experts are tackling the shortage and high costs. Then, weight loss can be life-changing, and we'll take a look at sagging skin that's left behind. We'll hear from real patients and the doctors providing cutting-edge solutions. And could these medications be a game changer for couples struggling to conceive? A top doctor and one woman who's now a new mother shares how weight loss is opening new doors to parenthood. All that and more on the next Message Meg, coming out Wednesday night at 9 o'clock, only on WWL+.